The more I think about this book, the more it disturbs me. Hi, lovelies! I am back for the week. So, I finished Imagine Me. And we have to talk about this because there is just so much to talk about in regards to Ella slash Juliet's trauma that she has faced through the series. So, last book we ended off on a happy note, and that is all good now. That is all gone. And Ella is forgetting things. She's misremembering simple things, and she didn't really think about it too much until she started forgetting things that just happened. Her brain is panicking. And we start off the book with a bang with we actually switched to Kenji's POV for this one, but we find Ella and Aaron in a field outside of the sanctuary, and she's screaming. And the world around her is being torn apart. And Aaron is trying to keep her together, and Kenji is trying to get to her, and Kenji can feel Emmeline trying to stop them. He can feel her rooting around in their minds, and it's almost like a parasite. She's destroying her sister. Even Aaron feels like she is different. And then she goes into a coma. And everybody's like, what are we doing? Mind you, we have some of the Supreme kids there with Hyder and Stefan. And the others have kind of gone missing. But at this point, we're just dealing with the fact that Ella's unconscious. And Warner is not great. He is he has not fixed his coping mechanisms yet, and he pretty much just physically isolates himself and emotionally isolates himself. He has not changed, he has not showered, he has not cleaned himself. He has just sat at Ella's bedside begging her to wake up. And he gets violent, he gets physical, ugh, it's almost like you can see his father in him. And even though he does not want to emulate that, that's the farthest thing from what he wants, it still happens. Because one, he's grown up around it, and there's two, he hasn't really had a chance to cope with anything, and he hasn't really had time to process. And then things get worse when Anderson pops by because they have just given away their location, and he has James. James and Adam are missing, and Anderson has them, and Sam, oh, she's been watching them. And it's not been great. And basically, we learn that Adam has sold himself out to protect James. He is selling his power of stopping other people's power to the reestablishment for James's protection. Which, as much as it angers me that he did that, it makes sense for his character. He's always worried about his brother. He's always worried about James. And it may be a stupid decision, but he's also like 18. His frontal lobe was not developed. And Anderson basically uses James as a hostage. So even his attempt to protect James puts him in danger. And that is unfortunately just the world they live in at this time. Thankfully, they get James back. Unfortunately, they lose the Supreme Kids and Ella. Yeah, they get kidnapped. And of course, this causes Aaron to spiral even more. Thank you. Meanwhile, Ella is awake and she's Juliet again. And she wakes up in a pod and surprise, she's been brainwashed. And she is working as a supreme soldier for Anderson. And reading her chapters, for a majority of the book, she is under this mind control. And it is like watching an explosion go off and you can do nothing about it. This tragedy is happening, and you, as the reader, are forced into her friend's shoes. As you watch her fully try to embrace the reestablishment, she uses her power. She now has this desire to harm things. She, in the very first pages, when she is now brainwashed, she sees a butterfly lands on her, and she crushes it in her hands after basically ripping off its wings slowly. A little graphic. This book is definitely has a little bit more gore than the others. But it is still just like ugh. And it is so interesting to see the dichotomy between Ella of how she is versus this brand new Juliet who we are seeing. And for a lot of the chapters for Juliet, let me go see if I can find it. It's all mismatched because this book is really representing Juliet slash Ella's identity crisis. This is a fantastical version of an identity crisis. And flipping between Ella versus Juliet, it is an incredibly well written story of just struggling with who you are as a person. And it's amazing to see. Because on one hand, this robot Juliet is a bad person. Objectively, she is a bad person. She harms people. She doesn't hesitate to almost murder someone on Anderson's orders. And Ella, she may not want to actively hurt people, but she will defend the people that she loves. And with Anderson watching her 24/7, he does not even allow her thoughts to be her own. At his command, she must tell him everything that she's thinking, and just the placement around her own body, her mind. Nothing is hers at this point in the story, and it is frustrating. And oh, it hurts. And it definitely reminds me of like the struggle with like women's bodies. And it's like not even your minds. They will try to take even your minds from you, your thoughts. They will try to police your body, your thoughts, your emotions until you are fully under their control and are seen and are completely property. And it's so amazing to see because, like, oh, such a heavy topic, such a momentous thing that we have. And it is just written beautifully and with such respect and care. And you just gotta love to see it because, ugh. But we go back to Adam, who is now in Hyder's top. And he is angry. He is now being praised as the hero of the sanctuary. And not everybody agrees. Everybody, mostly, for the most part, is praising him, but there's a few assassination attempts. There's this one incident where they're going to escape, but they need food because Kenji is like, you're not taking 10 steps without falling apart. I haven't seen you eat in about a week. So let's go. And the squirrel basically puts scorpions in the food. And Aaron, being this more violent version of himself, turns them on her. And she does not last long. And eventually, Castle does intervene. And everybody is high off emotions and distress with Ella gone. And ugh, it's just a shame. Seeing her friends just distraught sickens me. Everybody has almost isolated themselves, although granted, Brennan and Winston are together and they're trying to like hold the group together. It's going okay, but it's still not working fully. And Noria and Sam kind of play with the possibility that if they've already completed the transfer of Emily's mind to Ella's body, there might not be any other choice than to just end it all. And of course, nobody really likes that idea, especially Ella's friends, because they cannot lose her. But that is a last resort. So the party gets all fed. We have Nat, Kenji, and Aaron, and they go off on plane ride. And Kenji doesn't really understand how much this is affecting Aaron until Aaron confesses that he proposed. And Kenji wants to be jokey. He wants to basically make fun of Ella potentially saying no, but he realizes that's not what the situation calls for. He may be the comic relief, but he at least knows when it's appropriate to stop. And then they talk a little bit, and then the plane gets shot out of the sky. And then thanks to Aaron and Nat, they descend safely and invisibly, and they manage to sneak inside the compound. They're back in Oceania. And they're finding their way to Ella, Juliet, who is battling these things. And a lot of the things she's been battling is her attraction, quote unquote, to Anderson. Now, we as the reader know that that attraction really lies with Aaron Warner. And of course, it is mentioned a few times that they look very similar. Of course, they are father and son. And I hate, loathe, absolutely to the pits of hell into my stomach, hate Max. Because Anderson might be a bad guy, but he will not stoop to the level of trying to seduce a child. Because Ella might be underage. She's only 17, but Juliet, with their whole trying to switch everything, make sure that she doesn't remember anything so the project goes well, has a different birthday, and she is 18. And Max very casually suggests that Anderson should seduce Juliet. And, having a parent suggest that a 40 to 50-year-old man flirt with his own child. Max is not a father. Evie was not a mother. They are not parents. They are just donors to Juliet. And before, when she was having her spiral in the very beginning of the book, she realizes she's just the spare. Shatter me and break open the spare. I really just had to sit with that for a minute because, oh, that is why this book is called Shatter Me, not try to break me down into something, but no, break me. Because I'm the spare, in case the primary one breaks. And Emily, unfortunately, is breaking. They were designer babies. Evie specifically engineered them to be the exact way they were. There was no love. There was no injection of powers into them after they were loved. There was nothing but cold abandonment. And it just hits you. Because what do you mean you couldn't love your children for even a second? What do you mean you were suggesting that this older man seduce your daughter? Do you feel nothing? Genuine, do you feel nothing? Ugh. Every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child. And Max is definitely a parent that should not have had children, but of course, then we get into ethics and it gets messy. And we just only try to help the kids that got the lottery wrong. And so sad. But Max is scared and horrified of Ella. He realizes that he does not have power over her other than the most superficial sense. And we see this a lot in fathers and their daughters. They learn that their daughters are not forgiving as their wives, and grandfathers find out that their grandchildren and even great grandchildren are far from as being a pushover as their wives. And every time I hear that quote, I puff out my chest a little bit. Because no, we should not sit down and take each blow from a closed fist and open hand. We should fight back. Because only change will happen when we stop said fist from striking our face. Nothing will change as long as we sit idly by and let it happen. And after Eren and Kenji fight their way to her, and as she is wondering why he looks so familiar and wondering why the Supreme Commanders are saying they're her friends. She's a soldier, she doesn't have friends. And Eren finally reaches her, and she screams the device that is keeping her memories locked away from her, out of her body. And she finally fights back. And with a kiss, she's herself again. And in preparation for fighting his son, Anderson took a shot of Adam's power, except it's like overflowing a glass. It's going to backfire. That is a very rare and special occasion that happened naturally. And with the cancellation and healing powers conflicting, it's finally his end. He finally closes his eyes and finally leaves this world. And it's a relief to everybody because the boogeyman is gone. He is no longer there, and we no longer have to worry, and the reestablishment is done. And Juliet takes up that name again. She only lets Eren call her Ella. And that's it. We get to the epilogue, and Eren is royally pissed off at Kenji. You see, as they were rebuilding, they had to demolish the unsafe buildings, of course. Winston and Winston and Lily had a lab there, which they had Juliet's wedding dress ready. And Kenji accidentally destroyed it. But they go to a shop. And of course, Aaron Warner, being the rich fashion boy that he is complaining about store bought clothes. And Juliet's like, this is normal, dude. But they go back to the sanctuary and everybody is happy. They're screaming for Juliet, but everybody else is worried because her position is not yet stable. There might be people who would like to put the reestablishment back on the leaderboard, and they have to be so careful. But they are happy. And they wouldn't want it any other way. And they are going to get married that night. Granted, they had to push the wedding off a few hours, but hey, as long as Aaron has Juliet and Juliet has Warner, they will be happy. And that is the Shatter Me series. For Imagine Me, of course, 5 out of 5 once more. Of course, we will be reading the side stories and the sister series with this. There's only one book out for the sister series, Watch Me, which follows their daughter. And it's going to be an amazing time. Of course, right now, I'm taking a break to finish the latest book in a childhood series of mine, The Last Kids on Earth, if you've read it. And I will not be doing a book review for that one because it's book 10 and I'm to book 10. But it's just a nice little in between book to send off the main series of Shatter Me. And yeah, it was an amazing ride. I have to say, it was ups and down and heart stopping, and I definitely recommend this series. The first book was okay. It wasn't as jaw dropping as some of the later books, but it was still beautifully written. And the series only gets better from there. And I have to say, it was such a fun ride, and thank you, my lovelies, for joining me on this journey. I will see you for side stories and the sister series. I love ya. Go get yourself a cookie.